Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome back to my channel, Mystic Rose Tarot. My name's Amy. I have been MIA for a few weeks, well, like 2 weeks, um, for various things, which include bringing my birthday, taking care of some responsibilities, which and a few other things have kind of put me away from focusing on my practice. So I had to tend to those responsibilities and get them taken care of. And so now I actually have some time to sit down and discuss with you for the month of Gemini, the tarot astrology, relationships, and connections to the sign of Gemini and its planetary influence through Mercury and its third house of communication. So let's get right into it because I'm going to say a few things. I'm going to make some changes into how I do my readings for this month of Gemini and potentially for the rest of the year. So let's just go right into it. So this is a series that I started last October 2021. And what I want to do is just for this year, I'm not going to do it every year. I want to just go through all the signs of the astrological cycle and give a tarot astrology overview. So it's not going to be comprehensive. Go to my playlists. I go very long and at times in depth with the details of the decans in relation to the relationship to the signs, the planets, and that particular card of influence in the minor arcana. So you could take a look at those. But here, for our month of Gemini, which we started on May 19th, and we're going all the way into January 20th, or I'm sorry, into June 20th. I'm just going to go and just give a quick overview. Okay, so we have Gemini. Gemini is an air sign. It is a mutable sign. It deals with communication, different forms of communication. Gemini also rules the shoulders, the arms, and the hands. One thing I want to point out is physically the physicalities that you would see with Geminis, people who are heavily influenced with Gemini in their chart is when they speak, the way that they communicate. They use their arms. They're very expressive with their thoughts, and physically comes out through their body movements. Also, one thing just popped into my mind: sign language. Sign language is, of course, a form of communication, a silent form of communication, and that uses the hands. That's also very expressive. It's a beautiful language. And I was just speaking with a friend of mine who's interested in learning sign language. And it's something that I had considered. So maybe somewhere down the line, I will go back and maybe explore doing sign language, because it is a beautiful language. So Gemini, we got the hands, the shoulders, the way that they speak. They're very animated in that sense. Gemini is the twins. They are the duality of the mind. They are ruled by Mercury. So the duality with Mercury's influence with Gemini is coming from a place of understanding. They want to understand both sides. They'll ask questions. It involves the intellect. They are very curious. They're always wanting to learn more about something or just something new. I have here this card from the Heavenly Bodies Tarot, which I use every month. So everything is in the realm of the mind, how we speak and what we speak. Mercury, the planet of influence for Gemini. Okay, Mercury is a fast planet, the movement of the mind. is, and the intellect, the mental capabilities, is very quick. But sometimes that mercurial influence of Gemini, depending where it's placed, can cause the speeding of the mind. You would sometimes see some Geminis speak very quickly because they have so much going on in their head, and they're just, it's like a file effect. So going through their mind, and they're just pulling out information as it comes to them. And that's the motivation of Gemini. There's a lot that they want to learn, and a lot that they have to say as they're processing this information. So again, with Mercury, we're looking about how this energy of Gemini with the mind and communication is used. It involves, as you see the keywords here, the thought, learning, the way they interact with people, and also partnerships. Okay, I mentioned earlier we have the duality. So the planet Mercury is a neuter sign. It's masculine and feminine. It's using those kinds of energy forces to balance. So not saying that you have to speak to someone who's more masculine or someone who's more feminine to understand, but it's seeing the both sides of those processes, how the masculine thinks and communicates, how the feminine side thinks and communicates. Okay, feminine energy we we tend to see as more of the emotional, more of the heart. It's expressive in that way. While the masculine energy is very forward, it's very fiery energy, but it can also be earthy. Again, all these influences come in with the placement of the signs, and that also balances where your chart is astrologically. Okay, so if you look at your chart, you'll see all the different planets and the signs that they're in. If you understand their elemental energy of fire, earth, air, water, and their appropriation of masculine and feminine energies in those placements, you could see in your chart where maybe you tend to be a little bit more on the feminine side of seeing things, or masculine, or maybe right in between, which is actually a nice, comfortable position to be in, because you have this balance of seeing and feeling both sides of those energies of masculine and feminine. Okay, so that duality of Gemini and that neuter influence of the masculine and feminine. They're neither masculine or feminine. They want to embrace both of those energies into the way that they think, is of guidance for Gemini. Okay. The house that Gemini rules is the third house. Our first house in the astrological wheel is Aries. Okay, so everything's outwardly, how you present yourself. The second house is Taurus. So Taurus deals with possessions, investments, things that are of value to us. Now, our third house deals with communication, but also it deals with our influences when we were younger, as a child, how we were raised, the environment that we were raised, but how that environment and going to school and what we were exposed to shapes the way that we communicate, the way that we think, the way that we process and learn things. Okay, so this also deals too with reflections of childhood times. I think anyone who has very strong placement in their third house could potentially have very strong connections to their siblings, if they have a good relationship with their siblings, or childhood friends. You may still be in contact with these individuals. And all of that shapes us. The influences that we had, that we were exposed to as a kid, makes us who we are. So that's where the third house comes in. Okay, so we have the learning aspect, the quick thinking, of Mercury for that influence of Gemini. Gemini is also a very social sign, so they do good in social environments. They are, I almost want to say, because we have the representation of the butterfly, we hear the term on occasion social butterfly. This is someone who is very comfortable being out in an environment where it's very group oriented. So they know and feel comfortable and confident when they're in groups, and they can easily, for the most part, speak well to various kinds of people. They want to know who's in their environment, and that's what motivates Gemini, being in that placement of an environment where people are sharing something very similar, but we're in this room and everyone may have a different perspective. So it's always good. Gemini always likes to know there's their group of people that they're surrounded by. And they want to learn further about those individuals once a conversation gets engaged. Alrighty, so the next part of the tarot astrology here with Gemini, okay, we got the planetary influence, we got our astrological sign, and we have our house placement. But for the tarot, we have three influences. The tarot, we have our major arcana, minor arcana, and within the minor arcana, we have the I just recently called it the sub arcana. Within the minor arcana is the court cards. And so each of these placements, the minor arcana, the major arcana, and these court cards, they each have a representation for each sign. Okay, so for Gemini, the card, the major arcana archetype, for each astrological sign is the main attributes, the main personality of what that astrological sign represents. So we have Gemini, and the sign, the archetype that is associated with Gemini, is the Lovers. Okay, and I've been working with the Pagan Otherworlds, which is probably an unusual deck to use for astrology, but for some reason, I just work with this deck when it comes to the attributes of these arcana archetypes. For some reason, they work well for me. So for Gemini and the major arcana archetype of the Lovers, we are actually in a 6th year because we're 2022. Okay, so that makes this year a 6th year, which is ruled by Gemini and of the archetype of the Lovers. So with the Lovers, we are seeing, again, it's how we communicate. But in this card here, the Lovers can also be an influence of how we communicate with ourselves. If you look here in the Pagan Otherworlds, okay, we have the merging of opposing energies, masculine and feminine. They're not separated, they are merging into one. But we also see here this energy that's kind of teasing or taunting the snake here. The snake can represent knowledge, wisdom. Here with the Pagan Otherworlds, I'm going to show the card here. Again, we have the apple, we have the temptation that we see. This deck is a little difficult for some readers because it does make biblical references to, especially this card, to the Garden of Eden. We have the snake there. The snake can also be our primal side of who we are. And how that snake energy, that primal energy, can develop under different circumstances. So with the Lovers, we have that merging. We have this connection of the masculine and feminine energy, and it's the understanding of both of those forces. Okay, and learning and growing from it. Okay. The Lovers, again, can also be how we connect to ourselves spiritually. Okay. It can be that connection between our higher selves, our inner selves. Spiritually, if we feel that we are not fully connecting, we can use this month of Gemini as a time to answer some questions, look within ourselves, not so much here, like the water signs. The water signs move from here. But with Gemini, we can maybe start, instead of feeling so much, let's start being a little bit more thought provoking with how we are expressing ourselves to people. Okay. And just being more mindful in the way that we interact with people, what we say. We had our Mercury in Gemini retrograde a few weeks back. And I feel with Gemini, even though we are now Mercury and Taurus still retrograding until the end of this week, end of June 3rd, I believe is the last day. This process is just slowing our minds down. Okay. So if there is that Mercury and Gemini placement that you may have, that fast moving way of thinking, the expediency of processing information during a retrograde may have been challenging because it's not clear. I think with Mercury and Gemini, because it is such a strong placement of the planet and the sign, it's processing all this information, but it's done in a way that's quick and it's very concise. But with this retrograde, it kind of shakes things up. It's kind of hard to make clear choices, and you may be second guessing yourself on some things. But here with this communication through the Lovers, during this time of retrograde, let's just slow this energy down. And I was very grateful for the last 2 weeks that I haven't been here to allow my mind to just not even worry about some of the things that I need to get done with my practice. It's time to take a break. Okay, not to stop and do nothing, but to just slow down the mind and have it focus on something else. Okay, so another aspect with the Gemini influence, again, we have the Lover's card, but we also have the Magician. Okay, this is the planetary archetype for Mercury. Okay, so Mercury and the Magician go hand in hand. But here, the Magician is the master, knows how to communicate with all of its tools, the tools being the elements of the wands, the swords, the cups, and of earth. The earth for stability, the cups for how they feel and how they can communicate those feelings. Air, of course, for thinking and how they express their thoughts out. And then fire is the way that energy gets processed outwards, how they use it. Do they use it in terms of writing? Do they use it in terms of speaking, delegating, processing all that information for the Magician? So to be a magician and to have that influence of Mercury and the Lovers here. Okay, look at the different forms of communication here. Okay, we see here, as above, so below. We're seeing all this information moving up, down, up, down. It's a constant. But it's also, because Gemini is mutable, they're adaptable and whatnot, but it's also maintaining control and being concise in the way that information is being processed out. So there's a lot going on. The Magician is the master because of that, because again, the Magician knows how to multitask in all different ways, multitask the heart, the mind, through actions, but at the same time, doing it in an even keel manner, being consistent. Okay, and that's hard, when there's a lot of things that you're being pulled up, down, left, right. How can you do that? One thing that I want to mention about Gemini is that they're multitaskers. So they like to do a lot of different things. And as skilled as Geminis can be in doing that, the challenge that comes to them is doing it in a concise manner, being in a consistent way, giving equal time or fair enough time for all their responsibilities. I think one card here and the court card that best represents that kind of energy, being direct and moving forward but clear-minded, is the court card for Gemini, and this is the Knight of Swords. Okay, so look at the energy. Again, I'm working with the pagan otherworlds, but you can use these cards and look in the decks that you may have. Pull these cards out. Pull out the Magician, the Lovers, the Knight of Swords, and see from different decks the different perspectives that they have. So here, the Knight of Swords, we see that quick movement. We see that quick mercurial movement, like the plan is already set in mind. Now it's time to start moving it, using that fiery influence of the Magician, put it into action. Okay, so we have the Magician there pointing upward with the finger to the cosmos, to the heavens, downward to the powers below. But here, the sword is moving forward. It's direct, it's concise. The energy of the Knight of Swords knows where it's going to place its information. And it's going to do it in a very stern way. The swords, as many of you know, who have a practice, can come across as being very cutthroat, can be very daunting, very real in the sense, because it's speaking, it wants to find answers, it wants the truth, it wants an understanding. And I feel the swords is almost the opposite of the cups. All that energy that's going into the cups, like trying to understand emotionally, trying to get to the root and core of things, is similar to what the swords are doing, but they're doing it from the mental perspective. They're getting to the root of things by asking questions. They're intellectualizing, rationalizing everything. So for this month of Gemini, okay, we have a lot of action going on. Okay, so we have from our May 19th to our June 20th for this year. Okay, just keep in mind each astrological sign, I think it's every 2 years or so, the date of when the sign falls into its placement will change. So I think last year was also May 19th to the 20th, but I think next year or the following year, it'll fall forward another year. So that, or another day. So it could be May 20th to June 21st. So we want to find this energy with Gemini, to be consistent, to be even-keeled, but to also be direct, but also to see both sides. Okay, when it comes to communication, Libra is a sign that deals with balance, but their harmony, their influence of maintaining a balance is they need to have different perspectives. They need to see things in so many different ways, similar to Gemini, but they're coming from a place of, they want to find out what's fair. How much should be given to one thing? How much should be given to another? They want equilibrium. They want that kind of balance. While Gemini, the duality that they have is the perspective of seeing both sides of a thing, of something, and understanding it and asking those questions so that they can better go into a situation or in a conversation with someone so that they ask. So Geminis are excellent students because they're always asking questions. They want to understand a situation that may not be clear to them. It's very important for them. And so it's that adaptability that Gemini has is a very strong quality of that sign, because it allows them to be open-minded to see different things, not to be one focus on one thing, but they got to understand different ways of influences that come into a situation. Alrighty, so that's what we have here for the month of Gemini. Okay, so ruled by Mercury, fast thinking, networking, connecting with people, asking questions. For me, Gemini is the consummate student, wanting to learn and and be open-minded to so many different things, so that they could process what their environment is, what they're learning, in a very quick manner. They rule the third house. Okay, house that deals with childhood experiences, what they learned at that time, education, the environment that they were in, that shapes each and every one of us. We may not have Gemini in our third house, but that influence of wherever your sign and planet is in that third house shapes who you are from when you were a child, and the way that you were learning and processing information, the way that you communicated. So, and then we have the magician, the master of communicating and understanding all these different forces that come into play when they're in an environment that could be changing. The more that something changes, the more they like to go with it. Again, that mutability, being flexible and working under different circumstances is what makes Gemini who they are. They work good under, at times, sometimes challenging situations, but they have to slow down and process that information and the environment that they're in to better understand it. Okay, so here we are for the month of Gemini. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that I will be making some changes in the way that I do my readings, because I'm already a week behind in doing the readings for all the astrological signs based on their elements: air, fire, water, earth. I decided, okay, here's this Gemini influence coming in. I want to simplify it, because I feel by doing all of these videos approaching 4 elements and going through all the 3 signs that are influenced by all these elements, I think it kind of gets muddled, and I think it may not be very clear. I know there's some people who do individual readings for each astrological month, but they do like one full reading for a sign. So they do 12 readings for each month. But I want to do something different. I want to try the elements. But again, I feel it's a bit too much. So what I've decided to do is I think I'm going to go back to my Decan readings. And so what I will end up doing is, and I think this will work out a little bit easier in the sense for recording, instead of doing a whole bunch of these, instead of doing like 4 recordings for the elements, I'm just going to read more for the decans. So for the month of Gemini, we have our 3 decans that represent all the astrological signs. But what I'll do is I'll work with the card that is influenced for that particular decan. So we are moving into our second decan, and that will take us to, got my notes here. This will take us into from June 31st, I'm sorry, May 31st to June 1st to June 10th to the 11th. This is our second decan. I'm going to skip the first decan because we're already wrapping it up, and I don't want to backtrack. I just want to go in the order of where we are astrologically, to stay with the energy of the planets and the signs. So what I'll do is we will be in the decan of the 9 of Swords for this astrological 2nd of June 1st to 10th. So I'm going to record a separate video for that. And I will bring in information for each of the astrological signs. And I'll go into more detail when I record that video so that when people watch this, hopefully they'll get a good idea as to what their readings could be for this week. So these will be weekly readings, and we got 3 decans for each sign. So these will probably be 3 videos that'll be spread out throughout the month of Gemini. Actually, it's going to be 2 because I'm skipping the first decan. Then when we move into Cancer, I will move into all 3 decans and do readings based on that. So I'll explain it further. But for now, I hope this month of Gemini, it's been challenging, okay, for a lot of us here as things start growing. I think where we are right now with these influences of global strife and domestic, terrorism here in the U.S., we really need to start seeing what is best for our own well-being. Okay, we may feel all these things, but we also have to think. Think puts a different form of action and perspective on a situation. Okay, I think a lot of us are being motivated from the heart. But let's start thinking. Let's use this month of Gemini to start seeing what can be done and start taking action. Let's start making this Knight of Swords. Start putting our voice out, but let's start taking action. Okay, whether it's stuff that's going on within yourself or outside of your world, that it could be influencing you in some way. All right. Okay, so I will work on this next video for our decan, our second decan for the month of Gemini, and I will apply readings for each of the astrological signs in that video. All right. So thank you for watching. All my information is listed there in the description. Let people know about this channel. Content, I'm trying to work with a schedule, and it's just not happening at this time. So I do my best when I can to share content. I will be doing live readings. I should be back maybe by next weekend. Okay, but tap that notification bell and you'll know when videos will be coming up, guests, and so on and so forth. All right. So that's it. I was going to say something else regards to related to my channel, but it's not coming to me. Anyhow, have a wonderful day, everyone. Any questions, comments, you know what to do. Reach out to me, and I am going to see you again very soon. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful day.